to the sidelines. Has a man wide open. It's tipped. It's picked off. MJ Devonshire. Got face. He's going to take it to the end zone. Pittsburgh takes the lead.
He loves those moments. It reminds me of last year in the Garden against St. John's. And guys just stepped up. Blake hits a what the hell 3. You know, we're like, what are you doing? And he's done that all year.
Klicka out to Bizzario. It's over. The Pitt Panthers have upset Wisconsin. Anybody if he hits his field goal. Up and got it. Sauls does it again.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to a special episode of Simplify Podcast. If you're listening to this one, you might know what's going on. The NCAA volleyball tournament is starting this weekend, December 7th. Or I guess they start on Friday. Whatever. It's starting this weekend. I'm trying to date the podcast. Now, joining me are two very special guests. You might recognize them if you are on Pitt Twitter or the Pitt Internet at all. My first guest I'll introduce is our returning guest, now back for his second show, James Santelli, proprietor of the Bandwagon's Guide to Pitt Volleyball, a great Substack about all things about the team. James, welcome back to the show. Glad to have you on, and how are you doing?
Doing great, Zach. Ready? We're on the precipice here of another tournament. Very exciting.
Super exciting. I think every tournament is exciting, but this one... We'll get into it. This one feels different than the last couple tournaments. I'll just say that. And there are a couple reasons for that. We'll get into it. But we do have a first-time guest, first time on the show. That would be Matthew Scabaloni of the Pitt News, who is, I know you do multiple things, but you mainly are the main guy on the Pitt volleyball beat, right?
Yeah, that's what I mainly do. I'll help out with other sports, but that's it. It's an honor to be here. I've been listening to the podcast for a while. The most iconic starting music possible. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me on. It means a lot.
Hey man, I appreciate it. I probably will look into doing a updated starting track. The sound clips in it are getting a little old. There just weren't many good sound clips from last year, to be honest. So I've kept the Pit 6 in there, but I appreciate that. I worked very hard, and by that I mean for about 45 minutes on it, but hey, I'm proud of it. Now, with two of the best and brightest minds in the Pitt volleyball universe, we're going to get right into it. But not right into the tournament, because we do have to talk about some awards that this team was given. And to call this team decorated would sort of be understating it. Now, real quick, the team went 29-1 in the regular season, 19-1 in conference play. Good for the number one overall seed in the nation, as well as an outright ACC title. They're first in 3 years, but they're first in more than 3 years, but their third straight title, their first outright title in 3 years. Now, in terms of the individual awards that they've won, Dan Fisher, of course, was ACC Coach of the Year. Olivia Babcock earned ACC Player of the Year, upgrading from Rookie of the Year last year. And the entire starting lineup was all ACC. The first team included Olivia, Tori, Rachel, and Emmy Klicka. And then the second team included Bree Kelly and Valeria Vasquez-Gomez, as well as Ryla Jones making a spot on the all-freshman team. And it's safe to say that this is nothing but deserved. I believe it's the second straight year where every single player in the starting lineup was an all-ACC player.
Second year in a row. Yeah, correct.
I do want to say, as far as Liv's awards go, not that I'm going to take any credit for it, but people are calling it the Simplify Podcast guest bump to go on the show and then go from Freshman of the Year to Player of the Year. I'm just saying there's a trend.
I've heard that out there. I've heard that just in the ether. The discussion's been had. You know what? It's the bump. It's the Kaminsky bump, you could call it.
I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna name it after myself. That would that would be a little presumptuous.
You're not doing it. Everyone else is doing it. But
That's true.
what it
Many
really
people are
does.
saying.
It really does speak to the step up that Olivia has made in her game this season. Um, and Dan Fisher kind of talked about it in his press conference this week ahead of the tournament, where you had a player who, as a freshman starting out, was not just kind of happy to be in the starting lineup and getting reps right away as a freshman. Like, no, she was competing from the word go. That's how you get somebody that is not only ACC Freshman of the Year, but then National Freshman of the Year. But I think what we've seen this season out of Olivia is just kind of taking everything, all the skill set, that all around from scoring, blocking, serving, playing back row, all of that, and just everything stepping up a notch. It wasn't really one area in particular. It's just you see improvement in all of those areas, and it, made her into one of the top 5 scorers by points per set of anyone in the country.
Yeah, Olivia like leads in every single category. I'm gonna bring something like recently. She, te- by all considerations, she had a great game for like anyone in the NCAA on last Sunday against Georgia Tech. But it was a bad game to her standards. She had a triple double, but it wasn't her best game. She had 18 kills, I think 10 digs, no, 12 digs and 10 blocks, and that was a bad game for her. It tells you what like the different level that she's on compared to every single player like in the country. I think ACC Player of the Year is cool. I think she's definitely should win National Player of the Year too after this. She's just been that dominant. She's hitting
Mhm.
in the high 300s as a right side hitter. Pin hitters don't do that, but Pitt has 2 of them also with Tori Stafford, another first team All ACC player. She could have won the award too if she didn't play with Olivia Babcock. It's like 2 dominant players like that, and that's kind of we'll get into it later. That's why this team it feels different, like Zach said earlier, like because
I
they're
was
that good and they have those players.
You kind of touched on it, but you mentioned the hitting percentage and Liv's hitting 328, which is I always like to use baseball as a comparison because it's the easiest one, but that is an all-star in baseball. Stafford's hitting 377. That is Hall of Fame level hitting percentage there. I think that if you're right, I think the only person she could lose this award to are her 2 teammates, is Rachel and Olivia, who are all 3 of them are candidates for National Player of the Year. And when you talk about how this team feels different, if your entire starting lineup is all ACC, you're probably going to have multiple All Americans on this team. Like, you just have to assume that multiple of them are going to win All Americans. And whether that's first team or second team, like, they're going to do. They have 3 finalists for Player of the Year. I mean, what they're doing. And I mean, not only like just their skill and talent, there is some sort of like, I don't know how to put it, but there's this killer mentality. And you saw it in the last week, especially, where for a while, and it's a quality of play thing, but Pitt was just dominating opponents, and they got a very, very hard test in the last week with a road game at Louisville in their huge in the Yum Center. And then you got a 5-set match against a tournament-bound Georgia Tech team in your house. And both times they did not step back down from the challenge. I mean, that just shows you like they're the best of the best, not only physically and in their volleyball ability, but like mentally. It takes a lot of mental fortitude to not let up throughout the season. This is a team that started off the season winning 30 straight sets. I believe they went to more than 3 sets in five matches all year, and that's off the top of my head. There might have been more. I can double fact check myself later, but they just have this killer instinct. And then they also have like the going into 5th sets. It's like, oh yeah, we'll just win it. It's fine. They're I think 2-1 in 5th sets, but that's it's even still such a small sample size because they don't even let you get to a 5th set.
You want me to go?
All right, I thought they were going to talk. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. They're just dominant. I mean, it's pretty easy to cover whenever you're just watching them because I basically half the stories I feel like I can write before I go to the game. They're going to sweep them at home. It's not going to be close, and it's just going to be dominant. Olivia Babcock, she's going to make a record that hasn't happened in Pitt history. I think Tori Stafford, she'll probably hit in the 300s. Rachel Fairbanks will have 12 assists per set. Every single time for basically any ACC game, the same exact thing happens, like every single time, and nothing different happens. And I expect this weekend especially the same thing to happen. It's going to be 3 sets. It's going to be domination. Tori Stafford's going to hit in the 400s in the Pete. And Olivia Babcock might get a quadruple double for all we know. She's just that good. And that's what I think we're going to run into. And I feel bad for Morehead State and Oklahoma or UTEP apparently because they're kind of running into a freight train in the Peterson Event Center this weekend.
Yeah, I think the adjective that I used most often when I was just describing any particular set this season was clinical, because that's what a lot of them were. It was Pitt playing its game, a lot of first ball kills, not a lot of long rallies, and I think the two biggest differences between last year's team and this year's team, and you've heard that question a lot, is like, what's different about this year's team? What's different? And you can look at particular players, Bree Kelly coming back from injury, getting a full season. You can look at, Tori Stafford stepping up in her sophomore year, Emmy Klicka stepping up as a libero. But I think the two biggest areas overall, one is serving. I mean, you've seen a team that has had maybe 4 or 5 of the top 25 best servers in the country by Chad Gordon's metrics. Excellent work on Twitter, Chad Gordon, with his analytics, and certainly the top serving team in the country, putting pressure on teams every single night. But the other part is just, quick kills, quick offense, not getting into a lot of rallies. And that's something that might pay dividends here in December, because not only, as you mentioned, Zach, have they played a lot of 3-set matches where they just sweeping and moving on, but a lot of matches where there are not a lot of long rallies. They don't have to labor. They don't have to, stick around and, try to get kills on the 7th, 8th, or 9th ball in play. That was actually probably the biggest difference between most of the season and then the Georgia Tech match, their final match of the season, was Georgia Tech played some great defense and actually forced Pitt into longer rallies where they did have to fight and terminate on, out of system balls and really force them to work. And Pitt came out of it saying, players were like, that was probably good. That was probably good that we had a 5-setter where we did face a tough defense that was stepping up and, did everything they could to try to win, because, like I said, for most of the season, it had just been clinical. And when you get into the later rounds of the NCAA tournament, it may not be, and you will have to scratch and claw.
I agree with that, especially with obviously it's good to get that experience. And very early, they were so dominant that it really didn't even matter who they were playing. They were just going to sweep them. You saw that early with Penn State and Oregon, two tournament teams out of the Big Ten. But to get that experience, both with the away crowd at Louisville and then the tough defense, and I'm not saying that Louisville was an easy out in that 4-set win, but to get your, I don't know, two of your 5 or 6 most difficult games right before the tournament, that's the tune-up game you want. You don't want to be playing SoCon Saturday leading up to the tournament. And you know what? That's probably a great segue. We can talk about the tournament here. Now, Matt did sort of spoil it. I'm assuming you've seen the bracket if you're listening to this show. Let's be real. The first weekend, and by the way, all games in Pittsburgh will be played at the Pete for the first time in program history. Huge. I expect to see some crazy-ass crowds there, bar none. It's going to be electric. First weekend is Pitt against Morehead State, Friday at 7 o'clock, and then Saturday at 7 o'clock is Pitt versus theoretically is Pitt versus the winner of UTEP and Oklahoma. You kind of got to.
We don't have to waste much time on Pitt and Morehead State. Morehead State didn't even win their conference tournament. They got in because the team that did beat them, sweep them, in fact, in the OVC title game, is Lindenwood, and knew enough to Division I that they were not allowed to go to the NCAA tournament. And Lindenwood had double-digit aces on Morehead State in that sweep. So that's going to be one where it's a lot of serving practice for Pitt. I think you touched on it, Zach. I think one of the biggest things I'll be looking out for in opening weekend and then the next weekend is just the crowds that this generates. It's been out there that they'll be playing both weekends of the Pete. It's also been out there that it's not an easy thing to do in December to guarantee that your basketball arena will be open and available not just for the matches themselves, but NCAA's requirements about having a full day of practice before, for all 4 teams that are playing in that region coming in. So credit to Pitt's athletic department. They're doing what needs to be done to make sure that Pitt can do it. And I think it had to happen, especially after last year when the tickets for the regionals got sold out at Fitzgerald Fieldhouse in 15 minutes. Like you can't have that again. You've got to actually adapt to the demand for tickets that's around this team right now. And we'll see how much it goes in this first weekend, especially Saturday night against UTEP or Oklahoma.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the amount of people going this weekend. I mean, my parents, they said they'll be going, so that's one family from Pittsburgh that'll be making the trip. But I think it'll be a good bit of attendance. I'm not gonna guess a number because I'm horrible at guessing that stuff, but I bet the lower bowl will be probably full. This team is generating a lot of things. I know another beat writer for Pitt volleyball. I was talking to Abby Schnabel, the Post Gazette. I was talking to her on the phone, like getting some schoolwork done, and I needed to interview her for something. And then someone overheard the conversation. It was like, "Oh, you're talking about Pitt volleyball?" It's like I've been going to so many games because I like them so much, and they're really interesting. Like they've become a talk of the town. Like radio shows will actually want to have them as a guest, not just like to help the team out and grow them because they're an interesting topic that people want to talk about. I know Doran Dickerson likes to have them on. People like that. They're interesting, and people want to watch because like Fisher was talking about this in the press conference this week. Whenever you have that number 1 next to you, people care. It's just as simple as that.
People like to see winning teams. You see it with Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, granted, his daughter does play volleyball, but you don't get Big Ben to a sporting event in Pittsburgh unless you're good. I might be wrong on that. I'm not a huge Steelers head, but that's huge. And like you said, Doran Dickinson is getting these guys on. The other teams, all the other Pitt teams love going to their games too. Football went to a game earlier in the year. I wouldn't be surprised if you see members from the team going again this year. Because they'll be on campus for the bowl game. If basketball's not playing, they'll be away this weekend, but I believe they're off for an entire week after that. It'd be the second round. Like, not only is the city supporting them, not only is the fan base like natural and growing at like an exponential rate, selling out the Fits in minutes. By the way, the new stadium's going to be smaller, so be ready for that next year. But there is legitimately so much passion about this team that they might not sell out the first weekend, but when you start getting into the second weekend and the Sweet 16 Elite 8, it's gonna be completely sold out. That is my official prediction, is that the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 sellouts, especially because you do have some fairly like not close, but you can get a flight to Pittsburgh from a lot of these schools, and we can talk about that. The numbered seeds in Pitt's region, just going down the list, number 5 TCU and number 4 Oregon are the expected matchup in the Sweet 16, and then on the other half of their bracket, you've got number 2 SMU, number 3 Kentucky, number 6 Minnesota, and number 7 Missouri. Now, I do want to talk about SMU because I feel like that was a very interesting pick by the committee to put SMU not only on the same side as Pittsburgh, but in their regional, because as you all know, SMU is the only team to beat Pitt this season and one of 3 teams to even get them to a 5th set. By the way, I looked it up. 6 times I didn't sweep a team this year. I was off by 1.
You were close. You almost had it.
I was close. I forgot about Notre Dame. That's a dead man.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the Cat Flood match. That was where she came in on the pin and, gave fans a lot to cheer about in that 4th set.
She had like 3 career highs in like 3 different categories that game. It was stupid.
Yeah. If you're gonna drop a set to a team that you shouldn't be dropping a set to, at least make it fun, and they did.
I just love the game because you get one of them a year. Is the Dan Fisher's gonna have fun with it game, where he's just like, yeah, fuck it, you can play wherever. It always reminds me of when Mariano wanted to play center field for his last game. They didn't let him. I'll never forgive Girardi for that one.
Mm.
But let's get back to the bracket. If everything goes chalk, you would expect SMU in the Elite Eight, which, see, okay, now tell me if I'm being insane here. I think that SMU's victory over Pittsburgh in their house 3 days after they had just played Pittsburgh was less a factor of the team of SMU. They're still good, but if you play the same team twice in a 4 day span, you're just going to naturally get better at knowing their tendencies. Now it's hard to play a team 3 times, but am I crazy in thinking that a lot of that loss was just back-to-back matches against the same team?
I think that's part of it. I think we saw from SMU this season that this is a very mercurial team, that they had some really losses that they shouldn't have had. And then the only team up until the final weekend of the season to beat Pitt and to beat Nebraska until Penn State finally beat Nebraska in their own place. Um, that's just kind of part and parcel to the SMU experience this season. I'll also say that it was a loss that Pitt took in Dallas where they still scored more points, I think by almost 10 points than SMU did. Like they won their sets quite handily, and then SMU squeaked them out. Also in the third set of the match at Fitzgerald Fieldhouse, it was 25-9 Pitt. So that's all to say that SMU has had very high highs this season, and they are totally capable of taking out any team, including Pitt, including Nebraska. But I would still put money on Pitt in that potential Elite Eight, and I would say that it's not unlikely that maybe SMU gets taken out before then, because you got a strong Kentucky team on the other side. You've got maybe even Minnesota that takes out Kentucky. All of these possibilities exist for an SMU team that is not really, as consistent as some of the other teams that might be in the top 8.
Yeah, and then like going back to the SMU game, Pitt, we may have outscored them, but they played bad in that game. To be honest with you, I think that was Rachel Fairbanks' worst game of the season. She just didn't do well. She had 43 assists in that game against Louisville in the 4-setter. One less set, she had 4 more assists. She had 47. She didn't really spread the ball around well. Olivia Babcock had 49 attacks. Tori Stafford had 39. And then Bree Kelly and Ryla Jones had a combined 22 attacks. And right now, Ryla Jones and Bree Kelly are playing way better than they were there. Fairbanks' connection with them is a lot better. So I think that was a matter of Pitt just playing their absolute worst. I think that is the worst they've looked all season. And maybe a few other games that against like lower tier ACC teams they played worse or they felt like they played worse. But they did not look good that game at all. I don't know. SMU could beat them. No, they have the players. They beat Nebraska. Like they swept them. So they are good, but I don't think that they will beat Pitt. I actually agree with James. I think there's a pretty good chance that we don't see SMU in the Elite Eight. I think Minnesota, the 6th seed, wouldn't shock me. They've gone to so many 5-setters this year. It's actually ridiculous. They've gone to a 5-setter against Texas, Wisconsin, maybe twice against Wisconsin, and then there was one against, I don't know, it wasn't Kentucky, but there was like another SEC school they went to 5 against. They're a battle tested team, and they've been here before. Minnesota is always one of the better volleyball schools, so I wouldn't be shocked to see them there. And SMU, they've won the whatever conference they were in last year, American,
Oh,
I
the
think.
AAC, yeah.
Yeah, they won that last year, but they haven't had long runs like this, and I don't know if they're ready for it yet. But they could. They have an older roster that has been like to the NCAA tournament, but they haven't been past like the first few rounds. So I just like Minnesota being that team more right now. I know SMU's good, but I know
Well,
I
and not
just kind of
to
pissed them.
not to nerd out on that part of the bracket too much, but what a great second round we're going to have between Kentucky and Minnesota. I mean, Texas
Yeah.
was not SEC champions this year, coming off two straight national champions. It was Kentucky, and they had Brooklyn DeLay leading the way on the pin there, and they're a team that can get hot as well. So it's no fait accompli that is going to be Pitt and SMU again in the Elite Eight. It could be Pitt and Kentucky. And you're right, Zach. It is a little bizarre that the chalk route could take Pitt through playing SMU and then Louisville. It seemed like, at least from the top seeds, the committee was trying to put more of the ACC schools onto the one side of the bracket, and then the Big Ten schools, at least again at the top, the Wisconsin, Nebraskas, and Penn States at the other side of the bracket to make sure that there wasn't any one conference together in the national championship.
That is an interesting point. I mean, I guess 20 years ago would have been all Big 12, Big 12. I guess Big 8, whatever it would have been at that point. But Nebraska and Texas for a title. But I did find that interesting, and I think that'll kind of get into our, I guess, before you get into the bracket as a whole, because I do want to talk about it. The path is very interesting for all the teams, and especially how it kind of plays out in Pitt's favor. Question mark. We'll see. Oregon, TCU. Any notes on them in a potential Sweet 16 game?
Well, of course, Oregon was a team that Pitt came out right away this season, went up to Eugene and swept them, and kind of showed that oh crap, this is not the same Pitt team from a year ago. Like, they're coming out with a vengeance right away. But it could be that you get TCU in the Sweet 16 because Melanie Parra has been the best scorer in the country, coming from the Mexican national team, starting out at Texas, but then getting a better opportunity at TCU. That's actually a team that I would like to see come to Pittsburgh, just because she's a player that it would be great to see in person. Her scoring ability and just ability to take over is pretty spectacular. So that would be fun to see. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, Oregon, we've seen what Pitt can do with them. Oregon has gotten better. In the first game of the year, it looked apparent that that team hasn't had any time together, and Pitt has played together in prior years. So it kind of felt obvious that Pitt was going to win that game, but I still think it's obvious that Pitt should win it if they were to match up. And then, as you were saying with TCU, they have Para, and that's their entire offense. They went Minnesota, who I was talking about earlier. They played TCU earlier this year. They went to 5 sets, of course, with them. In that game, Para had 92 attacks. That is an incredible amount. I don't think I
92
can do my
swings.
legs for the next week. It's insane.
Yeah. By the way, you're gonna get a Becca Kelly kind of portion of the bracket. Bree Kelly's sister, I believe, started out at Oregon, transferred to TCU, could have to face Oregon, and then if they win, face her own sister, Bree Kelly, in Pittsburgh against Pitt in the Sweet 16. So storylines abound for the Kelly family there.
The selection committee loves drama. It's apparent.
Yeah.
They are messy bitches in that NCAA selection committee.
Absolutely.
What was the storyline last year for Pitt's first round game? I can't remember, but whatever team they drew in the first round, there was some connection from the school to Pittsburgh. I can't remember what it was, but
Corey Stafford's sister played for Coppin State.
bang, there it was.
Yeah.
There it is.
It was an interesting storyline.
This man doesn't forget a narrative. Never.
They just go sisters. Okay, yeah, right there.
Well, we have another sister connection as long as we're on the topic, because Emmy Klicka's sister is not just for Wofford, playing for Wofford, but is also a libero for Wofford. So we got a couple of liberos between Emmy Klicka and Lainey Klicka. I don't think that they would meet in the tournament, barring some Cinderella run by Wofford College. But I would just say, Lainey Klicka, if you're interested in transferring to Pitt, going into the portal, keeping up the Clica tradition at the libero spot. I can't personally offer you a scholarship, but I think we'd be happy to have you.
It would be, I believe it would be the first libero to go into the Dan Fisher All-American doohickey, but would be an interesting experiment. But let's talk about the rest of the bracket because, okay, let's start off with the other side because I think that actually is pretty interesting. And James, when you came on like a month ago or something, we were talking about the path in the tournament and how you want to avoid basically the Big Ten in Texas for as long as you can.
And they do, and they really do,
and they do. We talked about Minnesota and Oregon. They were not, they're still great teams, but they're not the teams we're talking about. On the other side of the bracket, you have Penn State as a 1 seed. You have Texas in that same region, as well as Creighton. I know they're not Big Ten, but they're still very good. And then on the other region, on the other side, Wisconsin and Nebraska are in the same quadrant. Like I guess they just listened to us. They were like, okay, yeah, we'll do that for you.
You got something out of it. I mean, a lot of Pitt fans were honed in on the fact that if chalk holds, it would have to be Pitt against Louisville in Louisville for the Final Four, which, grant you, is not an ideal situation. I mean, if you're the number 1 overall team, you shouldn't have to play a de facto road match in the Final Four. I get that. But at the same time, as I pointed out, Pitt went into the Yum Center, beat them in 4 sets, and did it with an entirely Louisville crowd, with the exception of, kudos to the diehards and the parents that were there night before Thanksgiving rooting on Pitt. But except for that, it was all Louisville fans. If you're going to the Final Four, it's not going to be all Louisville fans. I mean, there are literal sections that have to be sold to the other schools involved in the Final Four. So it would be almost an easier atmosphere for you. So if that's the toughest thing that the committee gave to Pitt, that's not so bad. On the flip side, as you noted, on the other side of the bracket, 2-time defending national champions Texas. The first time they won the national championship, everyone expected them to. The second time, last year, this was not expected until Texas went on a run with, Maddie Skinner playing her out of her mind and leading them to a national championship. This Wisconsin team that was higher ranked before the season kind of took some bad losses, has had some struggles with injuries and back row defense, but they're as scary as anybody in the country. You avoid them until a potential national championship. You avoid Nebraska and Penn State, who's been a lot better ever since they met up with Pitt back in September. So it's an easier road than they could have received. So they got some benefit from the committee in that respect, where all of those, kind of scarier, tougher, more talented teams are on the other side, and you don't have to worry about them until a potential national championship.
Yeah, if you were to tell Dan Fisher, and he has to be honest with you, or he just has to be honest with you, he would have told you, I don't want to play. Those are the teams I'd avoid, or on the other side of the bracket. I guarantee you, he is happy with the draw that he got. The bracket, I like Pitt's regional. I like their chance of getting out of it. I think every Pitt fan does. But I think Texas might have been the number 1 team they wanted to avoid. We haven't seen Texas lose in December in 2 years because they won back-to-back national champions. That's a team you do not want to run into now. In Penn State, it's hard to win in Rec Hall, so they might take away the defending national champion. I think that's possible. I think Creighton's really good too. I think Creighton's another team Pitt probably would want to avoid. They went to 5 sets against both Louisville and Nebraska. I think both were on the road. That is a very good team that you do not want to run into, that they're happy to be on the other side. Then on your side, you have Louisville and Stanford, 2 teams that you've won every single game against them. You feel pretty confident. And SMU is the only team you lost to, and that was their worst game of the season, as I kind of said earlier. They're really happy with where they're at, and I've been looking at is I think Wisconsin might lose in the second round to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has lost
hot
4
take.
straight 5-setters. Yeah, it is a very hot take, but they've lost 4 straight 5-setters. They're maybe the most depressed team on the planet right now. They're going to get that energy. They're going to crush who's the, I guess, 10 seed. They're going to crush Tennessee, and then they're going to be angry. UW Fieldhouse is nowhere easy to win, but I think they might win that game. I really like Georgia Tech's chances in that game. At least it's not going to be a clean sweep for Wisconsin. They haven't really had easy sweeps against anyone. Like their last game of the season at home was against Michigan State. They still lost a set to them, and they didn't even make the tournament. I think Georgia Tech could be a dangerous team for them to play. They have Bianca Bertolino with a jump serve you're not ready for every single time. They got a pretty good team that might make some noise as a 7 seed. I'm not guaranteeing it. I don't think you can bet on volleyball, so it's not betting advice either, but I like the
No, but
chances of that happening, to be honest.
You can play in the ESPN Tournament Challenge. The good folks at ESPN have started a bracket challenge this year. So if Matt, you want to put your not money where your mouth is, you can call for a Bertolino and Otene win. I mean, look, I said it earlier. They were impressive, especially defensively here in Pittsburgh, playing another 5-setter. And as you mentioned, I totally left out Creighton. And those losses that you mentioned in 5 sets on the road were their only losses of the season. I mean, they ran through the rest of their schedule. Would have been a number 1 seed had they simply won one of those 5-set matches. I saw them in person last year. They came to Pittsburgh and had to play Louisville in the Sweet 16 and almost upset Louisville. I mean, there was a distinct possibility that regional final last year, instead of being Pitt versus Louisville, would have been Pitt versus Creighton. And that would have been tough because you got Nora Sis and Ava Martin on the pins, who are 2 of the toughest in the country. I mean, Pitt is lucky that it's not the number 2 seed in their bracket. I would take SMU every day and twice on Sunday over having to face Creighton in that Elite Eight.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I do like the Georgia Tech upset pick. I think that's spicy. I like it. We'll see if they come through. I actually do think, there are a lot of ACC teams in this bracket. The ones on the other side are Miami, Georgia Tech, and UNC. Honestly, you could argue that Georgia Tech might be a little bit underseeded with like the conference they play in. Obviously, they're not the top of the ACC, but they are sort of either the bottom of the top or the top of the middle. That's kind of maybe confusing, but I don't hate the take. Let's get into the final region here. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think my legacy is on the line with the Simplify podcast for that. They cannot get swept. If they get swept, we're in a bad spot.
Or upset by
right,
Tennessee at 5:30 on the first day, and just all right, it's all done.
Yeah, I might have to delete my Twitter then.
So if that does happen, I will say we want the fans to hold Matt accountable. We want you to do some targeted harassment on him, and he will be put in podcast timeout. He will have to make bolder and bolder picks until he's allowed back on the show.
I agree. I agree. I feel like that's the only way to deal with it.
Pretty much. But let's talk about this final quadrant. And we've sort of hinted at it. But the final quadrant is the last number 1 seed, Louisville. Number 2, Stanford. Number 3, Kansas, 4, Purdue. And then BYU, Florida, LMU, and Northern Iowa rounding out the top 8. Now, Chuck
Grassley's favorite team, Northern Iowa. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the senior senator, and I mean senior, from Iowa, Chuck Grassley, in addition to all of his other random tweets, will tweet Northern Iowa score updates, not dissimilar to how yours truly will tweet Pitt updates. Now, for a while, I thought that Senator Grassley was a true fan of UNI and was doing this simply for the love of the game. Come to find out, Senator Grassley's got a family member, I think either a son or a grandson, who's an assistant coach on the team. And I was disappointed when I found this out. I'm like, geez, the one nice thing I could say about that old fart Senator Chuck Grassley. And come to find it was all just nepotism. Anyway, that was an aside.
I never thought we'd get into Senator volleyball posting nepotism on the show, but honestly, I'm not unhappy we did.
That's what I bring to the proceeding.
Yeah, this one is yeah, this one is just interesting. I mean, the top 4 seeds in this region are all dangerous teams. We all know about Stanford, know about Louisville. We all know Louisville very well as Pitt fans. Purdue is a very dangerous Big Ten team, super tall team. Kansas, I did they win the Big 12 this
They
year?
did not win the Big 12. I believe it was Arizona State that won.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, because they're on the other side of the bracket. Yeah. But still, they were a super dangerous team. I mean, I don't know about any of the other lower numbered seeds, but I think it's a safe bet in this region that you're going to see one of the top 4. I wouldn't. I mean, this one is a tough one.
Or even go beyond that. I mean, you have a semi sleeper in Florida where if there is any opposite in the country that could challenge Olivia Babcock as the best in the country this season, it's Kennedy Martin. I mean, from a pure point scoring and blocking ability standpoint, you could say it's 1A and 1B among right side hitters in the country. It's Kennedy Martin at Florida, so that's a team that could certainly make a run. Yeah, it's one of those brackets where Louisville, which just lost to Stanford in the final week of the season, granted in Palo Alto, could have to face that team again. A Purdue team that's not going to back down from anybody, playing the Big Ten schedule that they had and having the front row players that they have. That is one where if you're making out your bracket, you might be able to go against chalk a little bit in this one and pick yourself some lower seeds to advance. We'll see.
Yeah, I would say it's the deepest bracket by far. I mean, you said Florida; they could go on a run. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw them in the Elite Eight. There's so many teams that I wouldn't be shocked that come out of this region. I wouldn't be shocked if Florida somehow made it to the Final Four. I'm not saying that's not one of my picks, but they could be one of those teams. I mean, Purdue they took Nebraska to 5 in Nebraska. They're that good of a team. There's so many teams that I think can go far. Stanford, I mean, we saw them already beat them. I still think Louisville will be the team that ultimately wins this region, just because like the determination of playing a Final Four at your home. I feel like that's got to mean a lot, but it's also pressure at the same time. So you could argue either way. But I just think Louisville's the best team, and if it's not them, it could be the chalk, and it could be Stanford as the 2 seed that comes out of it. If you want to be a little different.
And while we're talking about the craziness that could happen in this region, keep in mind Louisville will not be playing on their home floor in the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight. We talked earlier about the fact that it's hard to schedule around basketball in December. Louisville couldn't do it. They can't use their own tiny gym because it's too tiny for the NCAA tournament. They can't use the Yum Center. They got to go to Freedom Hall, where they haven't played since this thing happened 3 years ago, where they also couldn't schedule around basketball. So an unfamiliar home court, you'll have your fans there, but what a bizarre situation to have to go into a gym that most of your players are not really familiar with and have that be your home court for the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. That could also be a factor in getting some upsets and maybe Louisville not making it to the Final Four.
For sure.
Are they going to be playing in there the whole time through, or are they going to be shifting to the Yum Center for any of the games?
Just regionals. So first and second round, they've got the Yum Center clear open for them. But then the second weekend, I think there's a men's basketball game and then a nationally televised women's basketball game on the Sunday. So just wasn't going to work for them to play at the Yum Center the second weekend. So could be a situation if they keep winning, it's Yum Center first weekend, Freedom Hall second weekend, back to the Yum Center for the Final Four. Bizarre to say the least, but that's NCAA volleyball for you.
That's jarring, honestly. Like, especially if it was reversed, I would almost say it would work in their favor because they're almost like building up to it, kind of. But it is it. I'm interested to see how that affects them. One more thing, this region, we've talked about it, that Stanford just beat Louisville. Granted, it was at their place on the West Coast. Do you think that Stanford had a case for being the 1 seed in this region? And clearly, I think Louisville was the last 1 seed, so they're basically number 4 and 5 overall. So it was probably neck and neck.
Sorry. I mean, I think Louisville had the 1 seed locked up for a while. They would, especially since they still went to, I believe, 4 sets. So they still took a set off them, and whenever they played in Louisville earlier in the season, they swept them. So it was kind of just like a matter of if they flipped this back and forth. I wouldn't be shocked if it was if Louisville would have won it. I just think it was a matter of being home. I think home does matter a lot in college sports, especially college volleyball. I think it matters. So I think Louisville has better wins overall, and I just think they are still like the better team, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you got to remember there's always a human factor at play with this committee where it's kind of clear that they already had Louisville penciled in as one of the top four, and unless something crazy happened, then they were not really going to change it. And Stanford winning in four at home was not crazy enough. But I mean, Stanford, talk about a team that's not only well coached but has great senior leadership in Elena Logovy and Cami Minor, who some Pitt fans were upset that Cami Minor took Setter of the Year away from Rachel Fairbanks. You've got a case, especially with the hitting efficiency that Rachel has led Pitt to this season. I get that. But you watch Cami Minor and some of the sets that she puts out there and kind of lifting a team up that may not have the talent to be a Final Four team this season. But if she, is tossing out dimes like she has been all year, you never know. They could make it.
Cami Minor was ridiculous in that Louisville game. She had 60 assists. It's 15 a set. Like I wasn't too upset about it. I mean, Rachel Fairbanks and her 1A and 1B, and you can flip flop the A and B. It does not matter. They're both two top setters that will be both first team All Americans. So it was just a matter of her finishing the season strong and her lifting up, I guess, a weaker team, and her having more assists per set. It was nothing that I was offended by because they could have had it the other way, and I think Stanford fans would have the same case.
They gave us the player of the year. She's first team. She won it last year. They didn't want to go chalk, I suppose. They wanted an upset in the in the first round with the awards. So that's the bracket. Now, I am gonna make you guys. We're all gonna put our reputation on the line here. Final four picks.
All right, I'll go first. I'm gonna go chalk with Pitt. I'm gonna say chalk with Louisville, despite the conversation and Stanford beating them. Stay chalk with them. Stay chalk with Nebraska. You might say this is all the volleyball tournament, folks, is very chalk. This is just the way it goes. And
Yep.
the only team that I'm not picking up a 1 seed is going to be Creighton. I like what they've done. I think that they are going to have the chip on their shoulder from not getting the national respect, not getting the number 1 seed, having to trot out to Rec Hall to play this. It's going to be a huge home court advantage for Penn State. But you know what? That is a strong, talented. It's probably got better pins at the top than Penn State does, and I think they make their way to the Final Four. So you could have an all Nebraska semifinal in Nebraska versus Creighton. Yes, UNL and Creighton together in Louisville, as well as Pitt versus Louisville on the flip side.
Yeah, I hate to be chalk, but I think I have all 1 seeds, even though I've kind of hyped up all the lower seeds this entire podcast. I think playing at home for all those games, that is why I think it goes chalk all the time, is because you're playing in front of your home crowd. It's hard to win on the road. And I think every single team has a big home court advantage, maybe besides Louisville, but I think their talent might overcome that against Stanford. Maybe to be different, I'll say Stanford wins that. That's what I'll do. So I have at least 1-2 seed, and people don't call me crazy for saying all 1 seed. So I'll go Pitt in the upper left quadrant, Stanford in the bottom left quadrant, Penn State in the upper right, and then Nebraska in the bottom right. And then I haven't really thought about this yet. I know we're going to preview like our national championship, but Pitt and Penn State in a national championship would be the most wild thing ever. I would love that so much.
You know what?
I'm a fan of that happening.
You know what I love about that is it would almost, force people from Pennsylvania to get in their cars and drive down to Louisville because you'll have a 2 full days off. National semifinals on Thursday, Friday off, Saturday off, back on Sunday. If Penn State football somehow, wins the Big Ten title, then they won't have a game in that first round of the college football playoff. You can say, all right, everybody, whole Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, drive down there. And you know what? Zach, you're giving me now you don't want to see Penn State fans there. No, it's
They're
so
not
what?
going to do it. They're not going to do that.
It's all this is all fun. This is all just, leaving the possibility open. Anything is possible before the tournament begins and before the Big Ten football championship is actually played. Let a boy dream.
Okay, so I'm not saying that people won't drive down. I do think that any team in the Final Four is going to have fans there. Everyone shows up. Not to make this football podcast, but Oregon's going to win, man. They are the best team in the country. We'll talk about that in the next episode. But my picks, I am going to go chalk on the top half of the bracket. I think Pitt and Penn State come out of those. I am going to get a little bit freaky with it. I'm going to go Wisconsin bottom right, and then Purdue bottom left.
Ooh, he's going Ava Hudson leading the charge for the Boilermakers.
Someone needed to throw a curveball in there, and you guys just talked me into it. So I'm like, okay, sure, let's go with them. Let's go with them. It's going to be the ACC slaying the Big Ten and finally taking the throne from them. That evil conference of ne'er-do-wells and whatnot. They're folks. They're not good people. These fans are not good people.
These are evil people. Not to end this with any lack of drama, but there's no way any of us are not picking Pitt to win the national championship, right? You've got to at least do the secret that even if you don't, fully believe in your heart of hearts, you at least need to manifest it, make it reality that this is going to be Pitt's first national championship.
I'm not even going to say that I don't believe it. I 100% believe that they're going to win. I think that they've clearly been the most dominant team in the nation. They barely broke a sweat all year. They're super talented, and I'll call back to the preview show I did with Dom before they tipped off. The reason I believe in this team is not just their talent, is that there's so much experience, and not just in years. VVG is a 6th year. Bree Kelly is in her 4th year.
Redshirt junior.
They're both
for redshirt for not playing last year or being injured in the third match.
Yeah, so 2 players, and then Rachel Fairbanks is also a senior, so that's 3 seniors. As well as Amy Click. I almost forgot that. And then Tori and Liv, probably your 2 most talented players on the team, not only have just a full regular season under their belts, they have an entire tournament under their belts. They have a Final Four under their belt. That's the most important thing to me, because there's not a single player on this team who hasn't been here before, except Ryla Jones. Ryla Jones is the only person who on this starting contributing lineup who's not been to a tournament yet, and that's so important. And just the way they've played and how good they've been, they earned this 1 seed. They fucking dethroned Nebraska volleyball of all programs for the number 1 overall seed in a tournament. How can I not believe in this team to deliver a national title to the City of Champions? God, that hurt to say.
And
Matt,
I I've Pitt. I mean, I can't say I don't. Whenever you have Rachel Fairbanks setting either Olivia Babcock or Tori Stafford or Bree Kelly or Ryla Jones, who isn't up there with that tier, but still a very good All ACC freshman team player, I like my chances. And then you have Pitt serving last year. Texas won it by other things too, because they had Maddie Skinner, but they also won against Nebraska because of their serving. Pitt's the best serving team in the country. I really like them in that regard. They're also very good in returning the serve with Emmy Klicka. I don't think she gets nearly enough praise for how good she is for this team. Like without Emmy Klicka, if you just put in an average libero who's not an All ACC player, they're not here. They're not the one seed. A libero makes so much of a difference. I played libero in high school, so I'm kind of biased in that mark, but I think she makes all the difference for this team. She is a leader. Fisher's been talking about how she's been growing as a leader, taking more court in her job, and she's been helping the team out tremendously. So if you have all of that, you have a player of the year, hopefully a national player of the year, and then you have two other semifinalists with her. Then you have Emmy Klicka, who should be an All-American. If she's not, I might riot. Bree Kelly, who also should be an All-American. This is a team that has national championship written all over it. So yes, I 100% believe this team should win a national championship. If they can do that, we can see. I recommend. James wrote about it earlier. I recommend traveling down to Louisville for the Final Four and seeing if they can make it happen. If they make it there, of course.
Yeah, I will say, even if my delusions of grandeur of Oregon falling in the Big Ten football champion and all of that doesn't come to pass, it doesn't matter. Regardless, this third weekend of December, not too far of a drive, Pittsburgh to Louisville, and I will say that this is something that has built up over time. That first time that Pitt made it, it was in Columbus. Frankly, I was disappointed that I didn't see more Pitt fans there for the national semifinal. But it was a Thursday night. It was the first time that they made it. Fine enough. Second time, it was in Omaha in December. Need I say more? Third time last year, playing in Tampa, and there was decent Pitt contingent, folks that flew down. Pittsburgh expats in Florida. My dad being one of them, who I took to the match there. A decent Pitt crowd, but just totally swamped by Nebraska fans. Nebraska volleyball fans are who they are. They will continue to be. This is just the way that we'll have it. Now there's really no excuse not to know that this is going to be happening. They're the number one overall seed. It's Christmas time. Everybody has their obligations. I'm not going to blame anybody for staying home. But if they do pull this off, and if they are the first national championship team for the University of Pittsburgh, first team, not throwing shade on the wrestling champions, but first team to win a national championship in 4 decades, you're gonna wish you were there, man. You gotta wish that you had spent your weekend drinking bourbon in Louisville and spending time there, 4th Street Live, and just being there as part of it. Yeah, I certainly will be.
I will say this: if you're on a budget and you have to choose between the Pitt bowl game, the Pitt football bowl game, or a national championship, I feel like that should be an easy decision to choose from. Do you want to watch 7-5 Pitt, who's just been the most depressing team to watch for the past month or so, or would you rather go watch a national championship? Also, they could be the soccer team. There could be 2 national championships this month in 48 years, which is the most insane thing ever.
You mentioned it would be the first national title for a team in 40 plus years. It would be the first ever NCAA sanctioned title.
Ooh,
because
cool. Yeah,
because the football championships are not sanctioned by they still aren't. They still are not NCAA sanctioned because they're chosen by an outside committee, or at least they were for a long time. And the rankings are not chosen by the NCAA; they're chosen by the shadowy committee, who I'll probably rant about in my next show. Whenever those horrific rankings drop. But yeah, if you've got the means, if you've got the time, go see them in this environment, be a part of the crowd that's supporting them. And I don't know the future Final Four locations off the top of my head, but like James was saying,
I do. I think there's Kansas City next year, San Antonio the following year, and then Columbus is back for one of those.
So I mean, yeah, and so the next closest location that you're going to have as Columbus 3 years down the road. And that's never a guarantee. Like, I mean, another thing I said in our preview episode is that this team, and a strength of them is being so veteran, but with this veteran team, it is frankly do or die. That you next year they're still going to be good, but you're going to be losing so many of these players that this. If you take away one thing from this episode, is that this is the year with everything that Dan Fisher has built towards. And I mean, if you even just go look at it, where it's like 4 years of the second round, one Elite Eight, three straight Final Fours, it's a clear staircase that he's climbing. And with this team, with this talent, with three fucking National Player of the Year semifinalists, come on, man. They're the best show in the city, and you got to go support them. God damn.
Can't say it any better than that.
And like Fisher is not afraid to say this is the best team he's had. Like usually a coach will kind of shy away from that, like not wanting to hurt his other teams. But no, he's like, yeah, this is the best team. He can't not say it. Like watch him, just watch one time, and you're gonna be like, this is the best Pitt team in general I've ever watched. Like they're that insane. So yes, this is the year if there's ever been a year.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Girls bring it home. Now, one last thing before we head out of here. We've gone a little bit long. We always go long volleyball shows. Let's be real. You're clocking in for a minimum hour shift on this. I hope you got a long commute. But I do want to bring this up because Matt is an active writer for the Pitt News. He did have a fun little article that dropped today. I do want to sort of talk about it with him, mainly because we were linked in it. We weren't name dropped, but he did have an article talking about sort of the end of Kat Flood's playing career. She is one of these 6-year players, along with Valeria Vasquez Gomez, who has been a part of this team for so long. She's been the recognizable face of the program, as like things you get into. She's like, I mean, frankly, obviously the most recognizable, I think, to the fan base, just given the hair. Y'all know it. This is not me saying anything rude. It is what it is. The fans love it. But I mean, so I believe you've also talked to her on the Pitt News podcast. So I guess my question for you is like talking to these players and like especially this veteran of a player, like how do I put this? So not just this veteran of a player, but a veteran player who was in the portal and came back. Did you get a sense of like, I guess like why she came back or like what drove her to come back to this team for one last run?
Obviously, national championship was one of the first things. If you can win a national championship, you're going to want it. But she's also very close with everyone on the team. Like she's like best friends with everyone. You see her do TikTok dances with Tori Stafford after every game. Every single player is like, yeah, that's my friend Kat. Like every single person on the team wants to be like her best friend. I mean, anyone at the school probably wants to be her best friend. Like whenever you ask someone's like, hey, name me one player on Pitt volleyball, they're gonna name Kat Flood because she's like the most recognizable and she'll be as nice as she can be to people. It does get a lot to be like talking to people, but it's just like she's that recognizable. And like her going in the transfer portal in general, it had nothing to do with her like being mad about her playing time or wanting to be an outside hitter and pursue that. It was just because her major, like what you want to do, the coaches cared about what you want to do with like her major, and they were worried that Pitt didn't have the exact thing to get a graduate degree in this certain area. It wasn't because she wanted to get out of here. It was just like this is best for you like long term. But then they started looking at things, they found something that worked, and now she's getting like a business degree. And she's happy as ever to be back and now has a chance to win a national championship. And when I was doing like a volley band feature a while ago, that's the reason she gave me this answer. I was like, what do you do if you win a national championship? She's like, I'll just run down the street with a tuba. So I think that's a fun little addition. And then I also asked her why she goes by Kat instead of Catherine. It's Catherine is because she played in high school. She played soccer and she was really good at it, but she tore, sprained, or broke like 3 things in her spine. So that hurts, and it doesn't work with soccer apparently, but it still is fine with volleyball and the way she turns. But she goes by Cat instead of Catherine because the coaches would yell Cat as loud as they could, and they can't use Catherine. So I thought that was a little interesting fact. There's just so many like cool things you realize about these athletes. It's insane. She's just like the rest of us. There was a time in her life where she would watch YouTube and at the same time be scrolling through Instagram and just do that stuff. Or she'd watch Netflix and scroll through Instagram. There's stuff like that. She has over 70,000 pins on Pinterest, which is another thing that's insane. That's where she actually found the haircut, if you're wondering. It was exactly from the Pinterest. She was looking through it with Serena Gray, Eliana Posada. I think I said her name right. I don't want to mess it up, but I might have. Then Emmy Klicka, and they're like, "I dare you to do that." And that's how she wound up like with that. It's really cool to just like find out all these things and really be able to like tell their story. That's probably like the best thing about my job is just like finding these things out, knowing a why, and just how cool of like a person they are because they are people too, and they are literally just as cool as you imagine them to be in your like fake imagination of being a friend with them. You know.
And I'll add to
Yeah.
just you mentioned briefly, but that feature about the volley band that is also worth checking out. You've had great features on Cat Flood, Emmy Klicka, but the band feature kind of sticks into my mind of how much that they have become part of the program. And as Pitt volleyball's fortunes have risen in the Dan Fisher era, the band has been along for the ride, has traveled to the NCAA tournament sites when they've gone on the road, and you capture that really well. So folks should check it out.
I appreciate that. Appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was all I was saying. That was all I was saying. It was just I appreciate it.
All right. No, we'll definitely link to this. And one more thing, because I don't want to spoil the whole article. I want people to go read it. But the laser eyes came up, and now I want to get ahead of this. Friend of the show, Dom Campbell, did text me after a volleyball match, and he's like, "Oh, I talked to Cat Flood about the laser eyes photo. If you don't know, I made that photo on a whim back in 2021." And she's like, "Yeah, jokingly, she said that photo haunts me." So I'm gonna get ahead of it. Hand up, Cat Flood. If you don't like that photo, I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry about it. Your phrasing in this is very funny. She's seen the photo of her looking with laser eyes on the net countless times, which is not. I kind of feel bad. I'm gonna be real.
There's only one way to apologize. She has to come on the show. I think that's the only way to apologize.
Actually, I would love to have her come on the show. That would be like everything coming full circle, where it's like, I don't know, but I do think in a way that image kind of spiritually resonates with the entire fan base, or like just like resonates with the rise of both the team and the popularity of the team. Because at that point in 2021, the team is sort of really on their first big step up after not getting past the Elite Eight in their first 5 tournament appearances. And that was still back when like the ACC sort of had questions about conference strength and all that. And then basically ever since that photo was posted in the Wisconsin Elite Eight, the team has reached new highs each and every year. And listen, I'm not taking credit for it, but there is sort of like, it sounds stupid. There's like this almost weirdly spiritual connection between just that photo gets posted and then they love the photo. They have someone, I think, in the volley band put that photo, very small, by the way. I actually went back and found the frame back in the Louisville game. They had it, but they put it on like an ace card, and I was like, that's super cool.
Well,
I love the photo.
It's your legacy. It will be on your headstone. But I'm glad you brought this up, just to say, a part of this that has been, I think, a portion of the volleyball team's popularity and attendance and ratings, whatever it may be, is that in a time in college sports where you have so many, football players leaving after 1 or 2 seasons into the transfer portal, basketball players either, going to the NBA or going into the transfer portal, don't begrudge them of any of that. But I think one of the downstream effects is fans and alumni and students don't get to know the players, embrace them, become true fans of the players as individuals. Whereas with the volleyball team now, having Kat Flood and Valeria Vasquez Gomez and Emmy Klicka all of these years, and now, Rachel Fairbanks and Olivia Babcock, I wrote it earlier this season. You got more volleyball players with over 7,500 Instagram followers than you do men's basketball players. The volleyball team's Instagram has more followers than the men's hoops team does. I mean, this is where the future of fandom sits on social media, and you can't ignore that when you're talking about how popular it's become and really what's possible for the volleyball program into the future, because you can capitalize it with NIL, with merchandise, with fans come in and buying concessions. There are opportunities here that don't exist as much in football and basketball because all of the names and the faces are cycling in and out. But here with the Pitt volleyball program, they've stuck around and really garnered true supporters and fans for not just the name on the front, but the name on the back.
And the laser eyes on the head. No, Matt, it was an awesome article. Like I said, I'm going to link it. You should. Everyone listen to this is obviously going to get a kick out of reading it. You all love it. If you haven't read it already, please go do so. Pretty easy to find on the Pitt News sports page. Now, gentlemen, it's been about an hour talking volleyball. Do you have anything else to say before we head out tonight?
Nothing really. Thanks for having me is really all I have to say, and I recommend going to these games if you're from Pittsburgh. If you're within an hour, I recommend going to the Pete for at least even the Moorhead State game just to watch them once. I recommend going to them. They're fantastic watches. I recommend that to any single fan out there. And once again, Zach, thanks for having me on. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, mine too. And I will echo that in a world where, ticket prices for everything have seemed to have been going up and up. I mean, to be able to go to the NCAA tournament for, I think it's going to be $15 per session. You could go, see Pitt play in the tournament at the Pete, even into the regionals rounds, hopefully next week. $15 a ticket. The best value in town, one of the best values in sports. If you haven't already been on the bandwagon, shame on you, but this is the time to get on.
There's no better time. There is no better deal. And with that, we will say we'll see you next time. This has been Simplified Podcast. I've been your host, Zach Kaminsky. I appreciate you guys saying thank you for me having you on, but really, I'm really thankful for you guys because this is one of my favorite episodes of the year. Every year when I do a volleyball show, where I can bring on guests that are much more knowledgeable than me about this sport. I'm sort of I'm a casual fan about it. But I got to have you guys on. You got to really preview the tournament in depth and really talk about this team a ton. I'm very, very glad that we could work this out with our schedules. And obviously, you two are welcome back on whenever you want. And listen, folks, this ain't the last volleyball episode of the year. So with that, we'll sign off. If you like this show, follow us on Twitter at Simplify Pod. I will put Matt and James's Twitters in the link as well, and then link to James' Substack, the Bandwagoner's Guide to Pitt Volleyball. And with that, see you next time.
Hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt.
Beat the Eagles.
Oof, they're gonna.